Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I have a first impressions to do for you on this behemoth. This is the CKF Fif23, and this was loaned to me basically by Kevin, LeftyEDC, who will be linked down below. He actually purchased this knife, and before it got to him, he had it sent to me first by the person that he bought it from, because he has a loaner of the same knife from Kyle right now, and he wanted me to have the chance to check it out, and I'm really glad that he did. So if you watched the unboxing of this knife, you'll have seen that I did a lot of giggling, maybe a lot of deep breathing. It's remarkable. The action on this knife is one of the best I have ever felt, period. I know a lot of people who I've seen talk about this knife have said that, but it's worth repeating. This is a special action on a knife. So right now I'm just ready to do my first impressions. I've carried this knife I carried it for one whole day, and then again yesterday evening I carried it for a few hours, and I just started to kind of figure out how this knife feels for actual carry and use, and so therefore I want to start talking about it, and then I'll tie it up in a bow in probably over a week with a full review where I'll talk about it more in depth after I've done some cutting with it. So far, the only cutting I've done with this has been opening a package. Did fine for that. If it didn't, that would be a problem, but I've carried it, like I said, about a day and a half. I've cut open one package with it, and that's been it so far. So let's talk about this knife ingredients wise, and then we'll talk about where I'm at with it right now, and we'll kind of set the stage for a full review to come. But the blade steel on this guy is M390, and it is a lot of it. Not only is it a very big blade, but it's a pretty thick stock as well. It doesn't seem that thick just because the overall size of the knife is so big, but when you put it next to other knives, this is a properly thick blade stock. You do have a full flat grind on it and a hand rub finish, so you'll see the lines kind of go horizontally. Gorgeous hand rub. The bolsters on this guy are going to be zirconium. They are fingerprint magnets, just like the blade is, because they're like a polished zirconium finish. And then we have a marbled carbon fiber, I guess is what they call it at CKF. There's a couple different names for this type of carbon, but I think marbled is the kind of accepted one in the knife realm. So the scales are marbled carbon. Backspacer, we've got more polished zirconium. And then on the clip side / lock side, we have a titanium pocket clip, kind of anodized bronze, which matches the pivot hardware. And then we have a liner lock internally. It is set on titanium liners that do have some internal milling, which is crazy because they're not very thick. So it's not like they were able to go super deep as they milled into them, but they still took the time to mill them out a little bit, which I think is really cool. There is a lock bar insert with an over travel stop, or I guess not an over travel stop, sorry. It's a liner lock, it doesn't need one. But it's a stainless steel hardened insert with a ceramic detent. That's what I'm trying to say. I also think it's cool when companies do lock bar inserts on titanium liner locks, because it's a pretty thin piece to play with. So the fact that they're able to screw on a hardened insert in there is pretty cool to me. Right here, it's going to be too small, I think, for me to show you. It does say M390, and this knife is number 270. I don't know if it'll work, but kind of right there on the tang under there. So yeah, this is, I don't know how many of these they made total. I want to say it was like 500 or 600, but I could totally be wrong on that. This is a Philippe Georget design, and it was a collaboration with CKF. So far, the biggest takeaway I have from this knife is what I discovered in the unboxing, that it does that. It's just absolutely remarkable in terms of how free droppy it is, if that's a good way to describe it. But it's not loosey-goosey. The lockup on it is incredibly solid. There's no play in this blade. So for it to be that fall shutty is very impressive. It's a big, long, heavy blade that's set up on, I don't know what bearings are in here internally, whether they're multi-row or single row. They've got to be ceramic, but it doesn't look like they're anything all that crazy. They just look like pretty normal bearings. So it just leads me to believe that this knife is, I don't know, it's put together really, really well. What is interesting, I'm feeling it definitely needs to be tightened up in some way, but I might have to take off the scales to do that, because it's like the scales back here at the back spacer are shifting a tiny bit, and I noticed that this morning when I put it in pocket. Again, I'd only carried it a little over a day, and I didn't notice it when it came out of the box. It might have been that way right off the bat, but there's just a little bit of movement back here. Let me see if you can hear this. So it's crazy that even with that, which maybe that'll become some kind of an issue. I don't know. I'll talk to Kev and then I'll pull off the scales, see if I can tighten it for him. But even with that, the fact that there's no lockup problem, like that it's a solid lockup, is pretty freaking impressive. And this action is just remarkable. So the other big takeaway I have of this knife is its size. It's huge. It is a massive, massive knife. And not just in terms of blade length and overall length, because it is a big, long knife, but also in terms of its thickness. It is a thick knife. And I can feel that in my hand, but I can also really feel it in pocket. It's not like an uncomfortable knife in pocket in terms of its like sharp edges anywhere, or that it's poking me or anything like that. It's more so just the sheer size of it. It feels really, really girthy in pocket. Yeah, this is bothering me more and more now that I'm touching parts of it and it's loose. So I'm gonna have to adjust this. But yeah, it is big, it's girthy, it's heavy. All of this zirconium and a crazy huge thick blade. It just weighs a lot, and you can feel it in your pocket. But it's also kind of fun, I find sometimes, if a knife is like charming enough and you like it enough, that even if it's really big, it like doesn't bother me that it's in my pocket, because even though I notice it's there, it's like, oh, that's the Fif23 in my pocket. It's like a reminder that you're carrying something crazy and cool, and that can be kind of fun in a way. So yeah, I don't know. I still have to do some more cutting with this to find out how well I feel it actually performs as an EDC knife, but I imagine it's going to be totally reasonable for cutting tasks. I'm not going to do anything hardcore with it. Probably just open some more boxes, pass it through some paper, maybe a little bit of cardboard, but it's a beautiful blade finish and doesn't belong to me, and so I'm not going to do anything wild with it. That said, I haven't done nearly enough. A cutting tape on a box doesn't really tell me how this knife does as a cutter, but with this full flat grind and it getting nice and thin behind the edge because of it, it's pretty impressive to me so far. I like it. I like it quite a bit. It's a fun knife, and it's different, even though it's like nothing about this knife actually is that crazy or different. I think it's just the way it all comes together. The material choice, the action, the size, like the unapologetic hugeness of it, the way things are finished, and just the way it looks. The ergos for me are actually surprisingly great for such a big knife. It fits my hand really well. I get 3 fingers kind of up in this groove up here. My pinky sits down behind them. It's comfortable to hold on to. It feels capable, other than this. But yeah, it's really, really nice. So I guess that'll be my first impressions. I'll keep it pretty short today. I'll see about tightening this up. And then, yeah, I'll do my full review once I've carried it a little more, done a little bit of cutting with it. And in the meantime, if you haven't checked out LeftyEDC, Kevin's channel, it'll be linked down below. He's an awesome dude for loaning this to me. And this is not the only knife he's ever loaned to me. He's loaned me a lot of knives, and I appreciate him for that. And he's a good buddy at this point. So check him out if you haven't. And I'll see all of you on the next one.